martial arts styles like do you know you've been trained in?
Really well, I know one, and that is Chinese Wushu, Chinese martial arts, particularly Taolu, which is forms and weapons, that aspect of Chinese martial arts. I do know a little bit of boxing, a little bit of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a little bit of Muay Thai and Sanda. I wouldn't say I'm particularly good at those, but I am familiar and versed in them.
Okay. I feel like when you say you're familiar with them, it's like me training for 10 years.
Maybe. There's some benefit to just being immersed in it for so long.
That's true. So is like wushu, you just like specialize in that, or like?
Yes, that's where most of my training has been dedicated to, just the perfection of the movements and the aesthetics and playing by the rules and stuff like that.
What does training for martial art usually look like? Can you like describe that a little bit?
For wushu, that's a lot of stretching, a lot of core and lower body exercises. It's not really that strenuous on the upper body, so you won't see wushu athletes with like giant lats or big shoulders or something like that. A lot of plyometrics. You gotta be explosive, you gotta be fast, and then just working very intricate, delicate movements over and over to get them consistent and replicable and stuff like that.
So from learning wushu and perfecting it physically, have you seen it go into any other aspects of your life, like just like daily function or overall health?
Let's see here. Overall health, I would say it's beneficial if you aren't doing it at a competitive level. With a lot of competitive sports and things like that, you'll kind of blow past the benefit part, and then you're going to go into harming your body more than you're benefiting it. So that's kind of one of the downsides of, being a competitive athlete in any sports, in my opinion. As for other things that it affects in my life, it kind of affects how I view things. It's been hard to get through life, and it's hard for anyone, depending on circumstances. But when you're training hard with a goal in mind, you kind of have this idea of where you want to go, what you want to do, and how you need to do it. And when you're living through life and you kind of have an idea of what you want to do with your life, it's mostly the same thing. You have a goal, you try to make a plan to get to it, and sometimes it doesn't work out, but that's fine because you change and adapt. You lose some competitions, you win some competitions, and losing really tells you what you need to improve, what you need to do to get better.
I think a lot of people, they get discouraged from losing. They see failure as they don't see failure as part of the journey, but they see it as like the end. So you gotta use failure to achieve victory.
Yes, and I totally understand that. I've had many failures in my life. I've never won more than I've lost, and that's kind of just how it is. You keep losing until you get better. In fact, my first major national competition, I came in dead last on the list of competitors. Like, I had the lowest score in that entire division, and it really discouraged me, and it stopped me from competing at that level for, I think, about a number of years. I think it's about 4 years. I just never competed at that level. During those 4 years, I worked on improving myself. I worked on getting stronger. I worked on everything that I did wrong that time. And then every time I went back to that competition for the next 3 or 4 years, I was top 1 or 2 placement in all of my divisions.
Yeah. So basically, like obstacle became the way.
Yep. Yeah. Sometimes you gotta look at those obstacles. You gotta either find a way around it or try to blow through it. But what you can't do is you can't just turn around and go back the way you came.
Quitting isn't the answer.
No, it is definitely not. Sometimes a different path is, your solution. Sometimes just beating that wall until you break through is the answer. But turning around and going straight back to where you came, I don't believe that's the right path to choose.
So, like, do you sometimes feel that some paths are wrong for certain people? Like, quitting is correct in some scenarios, like where it's just not right.
Oh yes, and that was me. Right before I retired from competition. You know, as I was getting older, there were still kids who were, every year there's new kids in my division, and they're full of energy, and they don't have any injuries. But uh, you know, after you've competed so many times, you find um, you're good at something. And for me, that was good at teaching. I was good at breaking things down. I was good at explaining things. I think I'm much better as a coach and a teacher than I ever was as an athlete, but I wouldn't be that good without my experience as an athlete. And if I was always a winning athlete, I probably wouldn't have the amount of wisdom, I guess you would call it, to distill upon people I teach.
Would you say, like, if you did have that many victories, would you ever turn to teaching, or no? Is this
Probably not. If I did, it'd be much later when I would have been forced to retire because of injuries and things like that. But sometimes, you just ride the wave. If you're a good athlete and you could keep competing, you'll keep competing, and there's nothing wrong with that. You got to ride that wave. You got to take those opportunities when they come to you. But sometimes that's not the opportunity that you're given, and sometimes you have to act on, your
intuition?
yeah. You just got to act on your intuition, and you really just got to go somewhere that you didn't think you were going to go in the first place.
So, like, yeah, I know, like, things rarely go according to plan, but it's all about adapting. Adapting is really fun, honestly. Like, even when I've come across obstacles, like, finding a different solutions, like, holy, I did not know that was there. It's all, it happens all the time. It's great.
Yeah, you got to keep your eyes open.
Do you think, like you said, it gets at the competitive level, it becomes harmful to the body? Is that, would that ever deter you, like, if you had that many victories? Or do you think that's, I guess, an exciting part of it?
When I was younger, and not to say that I'm like particularly old right now, I'm only 33, but in terms of
Yeah, like, aren't
competitive
you, like,
athlete,
super young? Yeah.
in terms of like the age of a competitive athlete, there's, like I said, there's no
Right,
way I can
yeah.
keep up with all the new 18-year-olds that are coming into the division each year. But that's not to say there are other people my age still competing, and they're very successful. And that's because they have found a way to, address those injuries, to work around them, to make sure that it doesn't inhibit their training and things like that. And that's awesome. That's great. For me personally, I wasn't really feeling that at the end. I think I was.
It's like the fire inside of you is just, I'm not gonna say extinguished, but just, like, less.
Yeah. At the end of my competitive career, I didn't feel as if competing was such an important part of my life.
Okay.
As I got older, I was like, well, what am I actually going to do with this later down the line? Because my career is in teaching martial arts. If I'm competing, how am I getting any better at teaching it at that point? Because other than teaching, a super high competitive athlete to make it to my level, there's not much more I can learn from competing at that level that I can instill on others unless they are going down that same path. However, things like learning different styles of wushu to teach people, or learning how to address their uh, uh, insufficiencies or how to improve their training at a personal level. Things like that start becoming more important to me. Things like running the business, how to keep the doors open, keep the lights on. That's what changed.
So like, yeah, I guess that came with the wisdom you learned from competing as well.
Yep. There's always something else. You may have a goal, but there's other things that will come up around it. Maybe that you're not particularly looking at that point in time, but that are there should you choose to pursue it.
Like side quests.
Yep. And sometimes those side quests, unlike a video game that's scripted and works in one way, sometimes those side quests become your main quest.
The main quest, exactly.
Yep.
I know. I guess, yeah, back to what I was saying before, like, nothing goes according to plan, but, like, things usually work out.
Mm-hmm.
Things always work out.
Yep.
Yeah. So, give me some of that wisdom you learned from competing. Things that you would instill in your students. What did competing teach you?
Competing taught me, you can't just brute force your way through things. You got to know the rules. You got to play by the rules. You got to play the game as it is written. You can't just be a super strong and super fast athlete. You gotta be able to do the techniques, even if it's a different sports, even if you're doing track and field, even if you're doing like a 100-meter dash. You could be strong, you could be fast, but if you don't have the right technique, you might lose out to someone who's actually slower and weaker than you physically, but because they have the proper technique, they can either keep up with you or they can go faster than you. And the same thing is true in wushu. The same thing is true in combat sports like Muay Thai, Sanda, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and MMA. Physicality will only take you to a certain point, and if you're up against someone who's less physical than you, or even just as physically fit as you, the difference comes down to the technique.
Right. I've seen things on Instagram where it's like someone like Khabib is like, he's not huge. They're like, MMA fighters aren't huge, like muscular, but they take down like Mr. Olympia, they would take down someone that big because they have the right technique.
Yep.
Like they know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing, and they're playing by the rules. It's kind of the reason why if you have an exhibition fight between an MMA fighter and a trained boxer, if they're doing a boxing match, the boxer is usually going to win because they focus on the rules of boxing, and usually that sort of exhibition match will benefit them. Or on the other side of things, if you have a boxer in an MMA match, once they get taken down, it's the boxer is probably going to get submitted because they have no defense on the ground.
Exactly. So we talked about that, how it helps you in fights. So how do you translate that to like daily life, the technique part over brute force?
You got to work smarter, not harder.
Okay.
Sometimes you're going to, if you're just bashing your head against a problem, for 8 hours a day and maybe even just 40 hours a week, and you haven't solved it, you've basically just wasted your time. When you could have just looked at it from maybe a different perspective, you could have stepped back from it, instead of going down the path that you had intended. Maybe there's a different one. And that kind of rolls back to what we were talking about earlier. You just gotta step back, you gotta widen your perspective, you gotta see what your available options are. And sometimes, actually a lot of times, failure tells you that. Failure tells you, hey, this didn't work out. Why didn't it work out? I don't know. Let's step back, let's analyze it. Let's not get stuck in a mood where we're just constantly down on ourselves because it didn't work out. It taught you something. You didn't come away from it with nothing. You got something out of it, even though you didn't get what you want.
Failure prepped you for the next one.
Yep.
It gave you the lessons. That's where analysis comes in. I used to play chess a lot when I was in high school. So you keep playing, but then if you don't go back and review the games, or like same thing with MMA, if you don't go back and review your fights, you don't know what you did wrong.
And that really helps with just training in general. You know, you can't always just train what you're good at, because if you do have a weakness, I guess you could put it, someone can exploit it, and you know, it might always be a weak spot for you. You might never be particularly good at it, but what you can do is you could plan around it. You could develop your style around that weakness to, you know, minimize its openings as much as possible.
So you have to be well-rounded, pretty much everything.
Um,
A lot of things.
you at least have to make sure that you're not ignoring your deficiencies.
Okay.
You gotta still address them, even though they may not become your strengths. You gotta just make sure that they're not left alone, left to your devices. You gotta train all aspects, even though you're not good at it.
So here's what I understood is don't make everything a strength, but just make sure you don't have any weaknesses.
Make sure your weaknesses are not as weak as they would be
Not as
left
fragile.
unattended.
Okay, I get it.
No one's
Okay.
perfect.
Yes.
You know, no one's going to be, you know, a perfect circle that well-rounded. Everyone's going to have, you know, things that they're strong at, things that they're weak at. And what you can do is just make sure that you're not all in on your strengths, you know. Focus on your weaknesses a little bit, because if not, as soon as someone looks at you and analyzes you, you know, let's say you're fighting and someone looks at your previous fights and their coach is like, hey, this is what this guy is weak against. Let's focus on training that. Once they lock in on that, it's going to be over for you.
Yeah, that's game over.
Yep. So just try not to give them as much opportunity as you can.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna transition to you growing up. Like, what age you started training, how that like kind of affected your mind, like overall. Walk me through that.
All right. So I have, I guess, been involved in martial arts since I was born. You know, my dad would take me to the
Obviously,
gym
yeah.
regularly, you know, and you know, I'd just be hanging out there while he teaches and he trains. I started practicing martial arts maybe around 5 or 6, and I don't think I liked it very much, to be honest.
Why is that?
You know, I don't know if I could really put a finger on it.
Like you were just tired, or you didn't see a point in it.
I didn't like listening. I don't think so.
Authority issues.
I really didn't like listening to my coaches at that time. I don't think, and that was at like
Coach Tony didn't train you, or was it
no.
someone else?
So in the beginning, it was a man named Master Guo.
Okay.
He was my dad's coach. Yep.
You did tell me that.
And I loved him, and I used to play with his youngest son because we're the same age a lot. But I think because of that closeness, I didn't really respect him as a teacher at that point. I saw him more as a relative, like a family
an
friend.
uncle
Yeah,
figure,
basically.
yeah.
And I think that's what kind of, you know, made me less respectful to them in terms of martial arts, because they were like family to me.
Right.
So that's how that started. After like 5 or 6, after I stopped and I did not train for long, I stopped training until my dad opened his own gym.
Yeah.
Even after that, it kind of took me a while to get back into the swing of things. I think once he started his own kids program, and he had a couple of kids train under him, I finally decided to jump in, because at that point in time the classes were small and I had nothing else to do. And he's like, hey, why don't you just join class? And I'm like, okay, sure.
How old were you then?
This would have been 2002, 2003, so 11 or 12.
Okay. So yeah, gym's been open for like 20 20-ish years.
Yep. Yeah. Since 2002. So was that
22.
Yep.
Yeah.
22 years.
Okay. Solid. Okay, and then what age did you start competing?
Let's see here. I think I started competing at maybe 13 or 14, right before I entered high school. I had my first competition.
Okay.
So after a year or two of actually training of my own volition.
Yeah. So let's backtrack. So do you think 5 and 6 is the right time to start training children, or is it a different age in martial arts?
I think it's different depending on the child.
Okay. That makes sense, yeah.
You'll have kids who are immersed in martial arts and they want to do what they do because they saw someone cool in the movie, or their parents do it, and their parents are practicing with them around and they want to do it too, and they're a little more ecstatic about it than I was. And so you'll have kids who have been trained since 3 or 4, since like they could stand up, walk, and run and things like that. Then you'll have 5 or 6 kids who don't know what they want. Their parents want to get them into something. They want to get them into something martial arts based, like karate, taekwondo, kung fu, just to do something a little bit different. I think kids don't really know exactly what they want. Well, people don't know exactly what they want, period. But kids specifically don't really know whether or not they want to do martial arts until like maybe 8 or 9 years old. Sometimes you'll get that rear gym who's 5 years old and they're like, yeah, I want to do martial arts. I saw it in a movie. Yeah, I want to do this. And they have no idea like what they're supposed to be doing, but they know what they want to do. Yeah. But I really think it depends on the person. For me, I guess I was a late bloomer. I guess I didn't really want to do it until I was 11, 12 years old. And then I didn't really figure, hey, this is fun, until 13 or 14 years old.
Do you think if you had waited until you were 13, life would have been different now? If you had just not trained at 5 or 6 and not at 11, but at 13 when you wanted to?
No, I don't think so, because I didn't really retain anything from that age. Yeah. So, coming into it at that age, my preteen years, I was basically starting from scratch anyways.
Dana White?
Yep.
UFC, yeah. So he was like, the difference between fighting and other sports is that fighting has always been around. Like, people started throwing balls in baskets like 100 years ago, but like, even from like biblical times, if there's a fight going on, everybody comes running.
Yeah.
So like, in competitions and everything, it makes sense why there's such a big following around not only like UFC, but like all these fight styles and like martial art movies. So when kids start to see that thing, I guess it's ingrained.
Yep.
Maybe it's human nature to like fight.
I think so. I think it's human nature. There's something, not to be reductive, something primal about, just proving yourself against others.
Do you think you've seen that within yourself or no? Something primal.
Yes. I've learned to fight, because I wanted to be able to defend myself, against aggressors and things like that. And there is something very cathartic about just hay in a bag, or even light sparring with someone. Just being able to get your hits in. Trying to make sure you're not putting yourself in a corner where you're just getting beat on and things like that. But yeah, it's satisfying when you're not actually getting beaten up.
You know what you're doing.
Yeah,
you're doing good in there.
When the stakes are low, when you're not actually fighting to defend yourself. You're with a partner, or even you're in a match. The other guy, he's there to win, but neither of you are there to kill each other. It's not like you're there because he said something to you, or he wronged you in a bar or something like that.
You'll shake hands at the end of the match.
Yep. Yeah.
Exactly.
And you'll see that a lot. The they'll be really aggressive towards each other before a match, and a lot of it has to do with kind of the politics of the sport and hyping it up and stuff like that. But at the end of it, you kind of know someone really well after you fought them or after you've gone against them in competition. Even in the sport of wushu, you're not actually fighting anyone. It's more of an exhibition type sport where you do your routine, you get your score, and then the next guy does their routine, they get their score. But just putting yourself in that situation where, okay, I'm going to throw everything out there on the floor, and in wushu, your form is going to be a minimum of a minute and 20 seconds, and you don't want it to be that much longer than that. You do it, you lay it all out there, and then you wait for your results, and then you hope that what you did was better than everyone else who's there trying to do the same thing.
Yeah. Have you ever been in one of those aggressive situations where it's outside a match? There was a threat.
Yes.
Okay. How should I handle that?
By de-escalating and walking away. You're not there to win any accolades. You're not there to get any prize money. At best, you get taken in, and then you state your case. You're like, it was in self-defense, and then maybe they let you go, or worst case scenario, the other guy sues you because you beat him up to a pulp. Or you get arrested or something like that because you're just in an altercation period, and there's not a lot of benefit to it.
You get like that momentary glory with everybody around you, and then they take you off in handcuffs.
Maybe if even that, maybe you get that momentary glory if you win, but most likely, someone's going to probably stop the fight, or it's going to kind of fizzle out instead of being a knockout at the end. So yeah, physical altercations for me are a matter of it's a last ditch effort to defend yourself.
Right.
It's your nuclear option because you've tried to de-escalate, you've tried to be friendly and cordial. You've tried to just walk away, and the other person is just not good with any of those options, and so you gotta defend yourself.
Last resort.
Yeah,
I think.
But for me, every time it's hey, just walk away, and they'll turn their attention to someone else, and it's someone else's problem. But you don't want to get into a fight.
It's like your safety is first, right? First priority.
Yep.
In those things. That's why, like with the matches, I was like, you have the ref. Mm-hmm. And you have a time limit, and then but you also have the mutual respect with your opponent.
Yeah, exactly.
That prevents.
Both of you are there for a reason. If you get into a bar fight, and I've seen bar fights happen, at I've not gotten involved, but I've tried to break them up instead because
so many things can go wrong.
Yeah, so many things can go wrong. You're not there for a fight. They're not there for a fight. Hopefully, but no one is there to fight each other. If you want to fight someone with a purpose, step into a ring, have a match, even if you're just sparring, or maybe you're doing heavy sparring, go ahead and do that. But there's a time and place for everything. Yeah. And, a bar, a club, just out late at night with your friends and you bump into someone. It's not the time, it's not the place. Come on. We all have better things to do.
Yeah. I think, especially with sparring partners, they're like very good, like mutually respectful, mutually they really like each other. Like there's no discord, there's no disagreements. I guess it's just mutual agreement on
because they're probably there sparring for the same reason that you are, to get better. No one's mad at each other.
I'm not drunk at the gym and I'm not mad at you.
Yeah, it's not it's not like they insulted you and it's like, okay, let's put our gloves on, let's get into the ring. It's like we're trained here. It's either before class or after class. Hey, can we work this a little bit more? Hey, can we open up this situation so that I can work this in with the other things I've been working on? And no one's no one's punching each other to knock each other out. You know, if you're sparring, even heavy
Light
sparring,
sparring,
you're not doing that.
Yeah.
You know, if you're in a match, yeah, you're trying to win, but you're also not trying to kill the guy. You know, when the fight goes down to the ground and you're trying to work for that submission, and maybe you get an arm lock or a chokehold, you know, you don't see people, you know, yanking those arms the other way until the elbow breaks, or, you know, just choking someone out so hard that you know, they collapse the trachea. You know, it's a very controlled use of force to get them to submit, and that's the key word. They're submitting. It's control over yourself is a big thing, because it allows you to control the situation that you're in. If you don't control yourself, I think this is a quote from Michael Jai White in one of those movies. But if you don't control yourself, you don't control the outcome.
Yeah. The only thing you can't control is your thoughts and your actions.
Yep.
Things that you do.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to tell someone else exactly what to do. You know, but you can manipulate them into a situation that's advantageous for you, or that's mutually beneficial for both of you.
Just de-escalate as much as
De-escalate,
you can.
you know, and this is where training comes in. The better you train, the better that you are at executing in stressful situations, the more in control of a situation you are. And, you know, if you could let a guy off easy by, you know, getting a few good punches in and they walk away, or, you know, you get them in a chokehold and they're like, okay, we're done. That's great, you know, and it's better than, you know.
Yeah, you won.
Yeah,
you know.
it's better than knocking him to the ground, and, you know, it's like, well, now I have to explain this to the police. They have to write up a report. I have to worry about getting sued and stuff like that. You know,
I think
fighting is good for the mind and the body and the soul when you know what you're fighting for or why you're fighting. It could be recreationally. It could be for fitness. You know, you could be defending yourself against an actual threat. But I don't think ego, I don't think, you know, standing your ground for, I don't know, nothing that's actually worth it is worth fighting for, you know?
you know, bar fights, street fights are not worth it.
Yeah.
Anything.
I mean, just walk away. What'd you lose? Nothing. You may not even see the person
Yeah, you probably
for
won't
the
see
rest of
them
your
ever
life.
again, yeah.
Who knows?
So, we talked about your wushu competitions. Did you only do exhibitions, or was there like matches? Like, does wushu have matches? I'm not too familiar.
So in the sport of wushu, there's taolu, the forms and the weapons. That's
Okay,
purely
that part.
exhibition.
Okay.
You know, it's kind of like gymnastics, where you do your routine, you get your score. The next
Okay.
guy does their routine, they get their score. Then there's sanda, the kickboxing aspect, and that is a contact sport.
I love sanda. It's great.
It's different than other types of combat sports like karate, taekwondo, Muay Thai. In what is it? American style karate. You know, you'll be in a ring with some half walls put up, and you could get ringed out by just getting pushed out of the boundaries. Same thing for like taekwondo. And Muay Thai, well, actually not Muay Thai. You can't get ringed out because you are in a ring, and if you get pushed against the ropes, you know, you're stuck there, and you got to get out. Sandao, however, is practiced on top of a lei tai, which is a platform that's a few meters off the ground, and you can get ringed out by literally just throwing your getting thrown off the out of the ring. You could, you know, fall from the ring, and that's one of the strategies in Sanda. It's kind of like Soul Calibur, in which you could like ring out your opponents, except they don't just kind of fall into an abyss. They fall onto really cushy pads. A couple meters on floor level?
Have you ever competed like in Sanda one-on-one?
No. Never competed. I've sparred, I've practiced it, but I've mostly stuck to my specialization.
Just in wushu. Okay.
Yep. And that's mainly because if you try to focus on too many things at once, sometimes you're not particularly good at anything. And when you're looking to win in competitions, you really just got to focus in on what you're trying to win.
Yeah. You got to practice one kick 10,000 times.
Yep. For my wushu competitions, I would choreograph my form. I would practice it over and over and over again, multiple times per day. And in each individual aspect of my form, I would practice dozens of times per session alone. And you just run the same form over and over and over again, trying to get better at it. And when you get to your competition, and you see your score, and you see what everyone else's score is, and you see what you can do better. Maybe you slightly change your form to be more optimized for competition, but you're not going to like change the whole thing from the ground up. You just keep on iterating until you get better scores, and you keep on practicing and practicing those movements over and over again until you get better scores. And it's really just doing that one kick 10,000 times until it is as perfect as can be.
I think that has a profound effect on the mind too. Doing one thing with utter focus, like 200% all the way in. You're just pounding over and over again. It fortifies your mind, I guess.
Yeah, you get used to that thought process. You get used to, there's something difficult, and I need to be able to do it. And you form a way to, you form a plan to do it, and you try to execute on that, and you see what your results are.
The results don't disappoint.
If you're doing it right,
if you know what you're doing,
if you're doing it right, yeah, the results do not disappoint. And even if the results aren't what you wanted, you still have that mindset of I know how to do something multiple times, and hopefully not get burnt out about it, because I have a goal and I want to try reaching that goal. And that passion hopefully powers you through any dead space where, you're kind of feeling burnout or something like that.
So it's that self-confidence that I can do this thing over and over again, and that I've done it.
Yep.
Helps you out.
Yeah, that self-confidence is such a huge thing that I've benefited from practicing martial arts. Just the act of putting yourself out there, either in a fight or on the floor just to run your form, takes a lot of guts. Because first you have to make the decision that you're going to do this thing, you're going to do this competition. Then you have to follow through with, continually training. And then you have to finally get yourself to that competition, get yourself ready to go the day of, and then put it all out there on that floor. Yeah. And you can't, you'll have butterflies. That's probably not going to go away. No matter how experienced you are, you're going to be just a little bit nervous at the very least. But you still got to do it because you put in all this time, you put in all this effort, the blood, the sweat, maybe even the tears.
You remember why you did it.
Yeah.
Remember the purpose.
And then you do it and you're like, I did it. I can do it. And that's a massive boost to your confidence. And even if the results aren't what you wanted, even if you didn't come in first, second, third, even if you come in dead last, you came ahead of everyone who fell off that track and didn't even show up to that competition. and you can't be disappointed just because you didn't get the result that you want, because you still are a lot further than where you started.
Yeah. So you're comparing yourself from yesterday. Am I better than before?
Yep.
Self-improvement, right?
Yep.
And then I guess you're already in like the top 1% by just showing up. Just show up.
Yeah.
And like that's half the work.
Yep.
People don't show up.
No.
I can't talk. I don't go to practice all the time either.
It's different when because for a time competing was my life, and so I would wake up, I would train, I would come back home, take a nap, eat, and then teach, and then train myself some more. Not a lot of people have that opportunity to do that, and most people they have a day job, and then after their job, they're kind of tired, but they still want to show up and put in the work, and that's worth a lot. Even if you're coming in 1 day a week, 2 days a week, you're taking maybe a class a day. You're only putting in an hour a week. That's still an hour more than what you would have done if you were just at home, sitting, relaxing, and not really doing anything to better yourself
So
at
the
that time.
alternative.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there does have to be a balance between working, training, and relaxing. Otherwise, you're just going to get burnt out. But if you're not taking the time to better yourself, and you're just working, and you come home, you're dead tired, and you're just relaxing, that just becomes your routine, and it kind of chips away at you a little bit every day that you do that, because you're not trying to build on top of what you have.
I guess in a way, if you're not, so if you're saying that if you don't work on improving yourself, you lose a part of your soul.
Yeah, a little bit. No one wants to work.
I think there's a difference between working to survive,
Yeah.
working to get better personally.
You work your job,
Right.
and that's pretty much to survive.
Yeah.
You gotta make money to pay for your rent, pay for your mortgage. If you have dependents, you gotta support your family, things like that. And you're doing this for a purpose, but that purpose is just to make it to the next day. And yeah, I do think that takes away from your soul a little bit every time you're in that cycle. And it doesn't have to be working out. You could be doing arts and crafts, you could be writing a book, you could be making music, you could be doing something that's engaging you in a way that's a little bit more creative than just kind of sitting there watching TV until you fall asleep. But when you do something like that, and you build something for yourself, and you don't have to make it into a side hustle. You don't need to feel that stress. It's just something that you enjoy doing. Maybe it's just playing games. Maybe that's what brings you joy. But you got to do something that brings you a little bit of joy in order to bring back that piece of your soul, or even just build a new piece of your soul to replace that piece that you lost from the grind, I would say.
So you go from, like, I guess you can call it stage one, where you're working just so you can go to work again tomorrow, but then you have to improve yourself so much that you go from working to live a life that you enjoy living because of, like you said, it could be training, it could be arts, or things that you enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from an existential crisis to living life to the fullest.
Yeah, and everyone wants to win the lottery so that they don't have to work and they can do whatever they want, and that's just not a reality for most people. And yeah, you will have to work, And you'll have, most people right now are, you know, living to work instead of working to live, and that's
The first one's
unfortunate.
better.
I'm sorry.
Like, living to work is like when you enjoy your work, but working to live is you probably don't enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah, you know, for me, I like what I do. It's fulfilling. And that's why I've stayed as an instructor for so long. Um, I really like teaching kids valuable lessons in life that I definitely didn't have growing up at their age. And, you know, I don't think that they're, learning in school quite as directly, the importance of hard work and repetition, because a lot of it is abstracted. A lot of times you're just doing something over and over, and you don't understand why. And I try to help kids, especially, understand why it's important to do those things, because if you really don't understand why you have to practice something over and over, why you have to do all these math problems, why you have to learn how to spell these words, why you have to, learn history or, or math or the sciences. When you don't know why you're doing any of those things, you
like
don't really have a purpose to. You don't feel like you need to, other than, oh, well, this is my test score, these are my grades, and things like that. For kids, we're working on this technique, we're working on this form, and I tell them they have to do it over and over again, because when you do it, you get better at it. And sometimes I have to tell them, hey, it's just like any other sports, or hey, it's kind of like that game that you're playing at home after you get home from class. Sometimes you get better at something because you're doing it over and over again, and someone is helping you along the way improve it each time you do it. And then a lot of the times they don't get it. That's all right. But for me, it's instilling that idea so that when they do realize it, it's like, oh, this is what coach was telling me about. This is how I reach my goal. This is how I set out to do something that I want to do and execute on it.
Yeah. Repetition, consistency, analysis of what you were doing wrong.
Yep. Yeah.
Stepping stones to success.
Stepping stones to hopefully success.
Hopefully. I guess in whatever endeavor as well, like, it doesn't have to be just fighting, but
Oh yeah.
it kind of applies to everything.
Yeah. It's important that what you learn in class is something that you can apply to other aspects in your life, because the principles, the fundamental principle of how you're working is still the same.
Do you think you've been able to do that with your students a lot?
I've been trying to implement it. I've been trying to get the point across. Whether or not I have no idea whether or not I've been successful.
I guess we'll find out.
I can only hope that the younger people that I teach today, grow up to be better people than they would have been without me.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to see those results. A lot of kids, they'll practice for a couple of years. Sometimes they'll practice for, half a decade, which is a very large proportion of their life, especially if they're,
like 10
years old. That's half their life. But that's half of their life in a very formative part of it. And after they leave, and that's just the natural course of things, people come and they go. After they leave, hopefully they retain some of that, and it helps them later on down the life. And that's the best that I can hope for. And I'm probably never going to know.
Oh, yes. Just hope for the best.
Yep.
Do what you can. Whatever is in your control.
Yep. Good.
So talk to me about the Mortal Kombat franchise and how you were involved with that.
Um, uh, Everyone that I talk to doesn't think so, but I think I'm a nepo baby.
Really?
So, you know,
But I guess that you have the skill set. You knew where you like.
yeah, I have the skill set, but that's not to say that there were a bunch of other people who were as good as me or better.
Okay.
My dad, he was good friends with the first talent that worked on the first Mortal Kombat, and he trained hard and he made sure that he was seen by the people, the devs, to make sure that he was in that second game and in that third game and then that fourth game and then a couple of spin-offs and some other games that he was a part of. But he had to purposefully, try to be a part of that. For me, I was doing martial arts and I was getting good at it, and there were always people connected to the studio and connected to the franchise who were close to us. And when I was of hireable age, they called me up and they're like, "Hey, you want to do this?" And I will tell you, my very first day, I sucked.
As with anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did not do a good job. I did not understand what I was supposed to do or how I was supposed to do it in the way that they wanted. And yeah, if I were any other person, I don't think I'd get that call back. But fortunately for me, I have friends who actively did motion capture for the studio and were vouching for me, and I got to be in the next game and the game after it and the game after it, and pretty much every game handled by NetherRealm Studios from 2009 to present. And as of now, I've taken my name off the list. I am no longer a talent that is open for hiring, at least for them, because I figured in that last time in the studio, I think this is my limit, and I don't want to be that old guy who's only doing some things here and there and not doing everything that I could have done, because I used to do a lot of cool things in that studio, and the very last time I was there, I was like, I think I'm hitting my limit here. I'm not.
Like, this is enough.
I'm past my peak. Okay, I'll give it that. But I'm not totally at the bottom. I think we're good. And
This is a good stopping point.
yep.
Yeah.
But I got good at it, and they kept on bringing me back because every time I was brought in, I would improve, and I would hear as much in feedback. And it's not like people are playing nice with me. They're working their job too, and they need to get results. Otherwise, I've wasted their time. I've wasted my own time. I've wasted someone's money, even though Warner Brothers is really rich and they don't really care. Whatever. But I got better, and I don't think I would have had that opportunity to mess up the first couple of times and then subsequently get better unless I had people, pulling for me, people in my corner. So yeah, in that regard, I do think of myself as a bit of a nepo baby.
Yeah. Let's go. I want to go into depth on your experiences working with the games.
Mhm.
How was that going?
Let's see here. Gotta be very careful about what I say because a lot of it is still
Oh, right.
under NDA. we would get there early in the morning. They would set up. We would suit up in our motion capture suit with the little reflective balls all over us.
Oh yeah.
We'd warm up and go over what we're doing that day, and we tried to get through as much of that shot list as we could. And sometimes we wouldn't get through it, and sometimes we would. We just rock it that day and get everything done in a handful of takes, and then we're good.
So I guess working on a video game is very similar to working on a movie.
Yep, very similar.
Yeah.
The only difference is, in terms of motion capture, you are allowed, in my opinion, a bigger tolerance window in terms of kind of not getting things quite perfect. If you're doing motion capture for film or TV, a lot of the times they could do the exact same adjustments that they would do for motion capture in a video game, and we would land on very, very cushy mats, which if you're doing for film or TV, sometimes you don't have the luxury of hitting those soft mats because it would be in the shot and it would ruin it. And then so sometimes you'd have a thinner mat, covered in the background or in the foreground, and then you would hit that, and it wouldn't be as comfortable as dropping onto that 8-inch or maybe even 10-inch, kind of memory foam mattress kind of thing, and you're like, okay, I'm good.
Slight variances.
Yep. Yeah. And then when we're doing something very complex, a lot of the things that we do in, super moves or was it fatalities or something like that, it's not done in one take. We're not actually, flying up there and then, spinning a bunch of times and then, coming down heavy and a superhero landing on our knees. A lot of the times, it's broken up into multiple takes, and then the animators, they stitch it together. They make their little adjustments to make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, and then that's it. But if you are doing film and TV, and you're not doing motion capture, you're a stunt performer for that. If they are trying to get it in one shot, you have to execute maybe multiple different techniques in that single shot, and that's really hard because a lot of times in film and TV, if you don't hit it, they have to reset. And if you're breaking through something, you're breaking down through a table or you're breaking through glass, it's going to take some time for them to reset, and time is money in that industry, and everyone wants someone who doesn't take a lot of time and makes them a lot of money, because they don't have to, you're not as expensive to them. So you got to be able to do it in one take, and that's the best that you can do. So that's the main difference. But because we're able to do things in multiple takes, and because we can be a little bit more fantastical in the studio in motion capture, we can do really amazing things. And the designers over there, they have really great ideas, and sometimes if you're lucky, they'll listen to some ideas that you have as well, and you're like, hey, what if I do this? And as long as it looks cool and it fits the design, they'll be like, yeah, that's great. Because the designers, they'll come in with like this idea, okay, it's going to look like this, and sometimes they'll have an animatic, sometimes they'll just have a storyboard, and they're going to be like, you're going to do something like this, and then that, and then you're like, okay, so this and then that, and you're like, yeah, maybe a little bit more like that than this, and then you're like, okay, what about this? And you show them something cool, and they're like, yeah, that's actually really cool, that works. And that's like kind of a collaboration between, was it talent and designer, and you're like, okay, I think we got some, we're
Does that
cooking
happen
here.
often? Or is it
Oh, really often.
Okay, I would think so. Yeah.
You know, because um, you can have a plan and then, you know, you could try it out, and then, you know, sometimes something about it doesn't really work well on camera, and you're like, let's change it up a little bit. And sometimes they'll know what they want to change up after seeing it. Sometimes they'll need a little bit of help, you know, exploring their options, because, you know, a lot of times the designers, they're you know, they specialize in design. They specialize in their field of work. However, a talent such as myself, who specializes in movement and martial arts, can, you know, be a little bit more open to getting from point A to point B, and can provide them with some more options, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, you know what you're doing more than I guess they do. But
I know how to do what they want me to do.
Exactly. Okay.
But as for knowing what to do, that's mainly up to them.
Yeah.
But you know, they do. We're going to do this, and I'm going to be like, okay, this is how we're going to do this, in case they ask.
Okay. Yeah. What's like the working dynamic between you, your co-stars, you can say, and like the managers, or how does that usually work? Is it just normal, coming to work, do what they say?
Yep. The hierarchy is still the same.
Okay.
You know, you have the execs running the show, and, you know, they have an overall game plan, and that goes down to the designers who are working out, you know, what does this character look like when they're moving? What kind of movements would this character do? And you know, how would this character do this or that kind of sort of thing? And then it comes down to us, and, you know, as talents, we're not there to redesign the wheel. We're there to execute an idea. That's what we're there for. And then working with other talents, and I've worked with incredible people that are just so talented, and they are work so hard, and they can do so many cool things. You know, we're working together to try to put this together, because we're trying to look like we're beating the crap out of each other. And we're trying to look like we're beating the crap out of each other in a really cool way.
Yeah.
But that's not so kind of, I don't know, so fantastical. That's like, we're flying around, swinging our arms around, and no one's hitting each other. No, it's like, we gotta hit each other like we're fighting, but with the luxury of a little bit more anticipation, you know, of what we're going to do, so we can put a little bit of flair. So it's not like, you know, it doesn't look like we're in a cage or we're in a ring. We gotta look like, you know, we're kind of like movie trained martial artists kind of thing, because that's what we are.
That's like realistic touch.
Yeah, it still has to be realistic.
Yeah.
You know, it still has to be,
and look cool.
Yeah.
And look like amazing. You know, fun to play.
Yeah, because a lot of real things that would work in the real world, they don't look good on camera. You know, and sometimes you just have to adjust. And Wushu specifically is focused all around the aesthetics of the movements, how you execute them, you know, your body posture and things like that. And that's one of the main advantages that I had going into these games, is that I knew what I would look like doing these movements. And so, you know, if they wanted a particular silhouette, or they wanted, you know, a particular angle for the hit on camera, you know, you could provide it to them, because you have that training.
I think Wushu has that very smooth, smooth movements, that rhythm, and of course you're seeing yourself doing it in the mirror all the time.
Yep.
So,
but yeah, you know, working on those games, really cool part of my life. You know, 10 out of 10 would do it again.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the closing question: if you could meet yourself from 10 years ago, what advice would you give him?
focus more on others. You know, you don't have to be so self-centered. And if I'm talking to myself, I would say, you'll learn this in due time, but if you can, take my word for it and start early. Other people matter. And sometimes you matter to them more than you think. Don't lose that. Don't let them go. Don't shut them out. You know, be receptive to how they're feeling, and you know, try to help them out a little bit. Not like putting yourself out there to, you know, be hurt or something like that. But you have the capability to help people. Go ahead and do it.